You made it past Chapter 16 and you just unlocked Special Interception. Congratulations, because this is about to be your first taste of what late game Nikke has to offer. If you thought the previous Interception modes were a grind, I got some bad news for you. I'm sure you're used to getting those blue or purple gear before, but now you're about to enter the major leagues and start getting that elusive legendary gear, aka Tier 9 equipment, and hopefully a bit later, overload gear that you hear me talk about so much in my build videos. To really put it into perspective, the game can sell you this tier of equipment from the cash shop, but only part of the $100 package. If that doesn't tell you how revered these things are, I don't know what will. Luckily for you, you don't need to shell out your wallet and spend a penny. Just by clearing Special Interception bosses, you get the chance to get these. Unfortunately, other than Special Interception, there are very limited ways to get these, so this game mode is one of the few ways you can still make progress in the game. The same rules still apply to the previous Interception bosses you fought. The more damage you deal within the 3 minutes allotted time, the better your reward. Alternatively, if your team wipes, then your run is over. And if you deplete the boss's entire health bar, you get the best possible reward. There are 5 bosses that rotate in a set schedule, each running for 24 hours. But before I start talking about them, I want to set some ground rules regarding tackling this mode in general. First, you may or may not have broken through the 160 wall. However, that doesn't really matter, as you'll find that level is not that relevant here, since this mode will lock your unit's levels to 200 anyways. At this point, you likely will not have any Tier 9 gear yet, as the best possible tier you can get is from the Gravedigger Interception, which is the purple ones. This means you won't be blasting your way through the best possible rewards immediately, as this mode will be one of the first times you encounter a major roadblock in progression. If you can't beat the boss entirely, I would personally try to aim to reach reward stage 5 or 7, as at level 5, the extra reward will have a chance of getting Tier 9 gear, and at level 7, the extra reward will have a chance of dropping Tier 9 manufacturer gear, usually shortened to T9M equipment, which is the ones you get to upgrade to overload. It's a small chance, but it's there. Even if you fall clear, you don't always get T9M gear, so there's always RNG involved. Thanks to a quality of life patch, you also get these boxes that, when you get 200 of, can be used to give you a random T9M equipment. So at the very least, even if you don't fall clear right away, you can still start getting these. Remember that if you restart a level midway, you can try again and count that as a new attempt. So if you know that you can do better, feel free to reset. As you become familiar with the bosses, you'll start getting some normal Tier 9 gear. And when that supply starts trickling in, feel free to level those to level 5, but I would not recommend leveling gear that's lower than Tier 9 past level 3, as those will eventually get replaced. If you want to squeeze out even more resources, in my advanced guide, I also talked about how for DPS units, I will prioritize the headpiece and the gloves, as those give the most attack stats. Also, if you can, try to play this mode on a PC client, as I just find it way easier to control with landscape mode, but it's up to you. One last thing before I get into the bosses, this guide is for strategies you can use to beat the Special Interception bosses specifically, but there will be certain aspects that you'll likely have to figure out on your own. Each player has a different roster, so while I don't know what you have, I'll point out some outliers that perform really well. Some of the bosses are DPS checks, so don't feel too bad if progression feels slow at first. But as you become more familiar with the bosses, you'll start knocking them out one by one. I'm gonna order this guide in the ranking of how I rate each boss's difficulty, starting from the easiest. Finally, let's begin. First off, we have Modernia. She was the boss you had to beat in order to unlock this game mode, so you probably had some experience with it. The game plan for Modernia is pretty simple. As soon as the fight starts, you want to destroy her core as fast as you can. This is because while it's active, she can unleash this AoE laser beam strike where it hits everyone. The first time she does this, you can order everyone to take cover, and it will most likely wipe out everyone's cover health. So you'll most likely have to do the fight without any cover. However, the second time she does this, you are dead. I have never seen a case where a player wins by surviving 2 laser beams. Even if you miraculously survive it, the beam will also stun you, and the boss will just use another attack to finish you off. If the core is destroyed, she will not do this attack. First tip, when you load into the level, skip the intro cutscene, but only after Modernia's face shows up. For whatever reason, if you specifically skip it here, then all of your units will target the boss's core. I have no clue why that works, but why not get in some free damage? try to use units that deal burst or concentrated damage on the core, so no AoE bursts like Parvati. It's very likely she'll do the laser beam attack once, so go into cover to survive it. But your main goal in this fight is to destroy the core. After you're done with that, the boss will alternate between turret shots and moving backwards and launching 3 bombs from each of her wings, and they can be destroyed. That's literally it. These are the only 2 attacks she will do, so as long as you have a healer, it's pretty much a race between the timer to deal as much damage as you can. One thing to note, the wings themselves are destructible, but make sure to not destroy both of them. If you do, she starts another phase where she teleports around, making your DPS fall off a cliff, and will even recharge her core after it's done. You can destroy one of her wings, which will make it so that she only launches 3 bombs, just not both. Use a healer to get back the damage you took from the turret, and either just get rid of the bombs really quickly before they hit, or if you're feeling ballsy and use the taunter, you can even iframe it. There are a lot of possible teams with this. I'll use a lot of the support cores I've showcased in my guides, but the DPS roles can be quite flexible. But ideally, you have Scarlet or Modernia. So in this run, I use Leader plus Novel as a support core, so as the fight starts, I use Scarlet's Burst to try and destroy the core. I still got laser beamed, but don't worry, you can survive the first time she does this. I then alternate between Helm and Scarlet's Bursts to deal with damage and heal. I destroy the wing on the right and I try to enter full burst ASAP so the game's AI doesn't accidentally destroy the other wing. That's pretty much it. Even without any overload gear, as long as you can get rid of the core quickly enough, you got the win in the bag. Next up we have Blacksmith. I believe he's already shown up at some point in the story before this, but this fight is a whole lot hairier. Realistically, he's only got 2 attacks, and it's more or less the same as Modernia, but a bit harder to deal with. Blacksmith will alternate between launching a barrage of bombs and heavy turret shots. The missiles can be cleared with any AoE attack, whether it may be from a burst skill or something like A2's sword, and can even be iframed. However, it's mainly the turret fire that's gonna cripple you. Unlike Modernia's turrets, this one hits pretty hard. If you get unlucky and it selects the same unit to shoot at and you didn't get any healing in, there's a good chance they're gonna go down. Again, for general play, I would recommend bringing a healer, or leader, to repair cover and keep your whole team healthy. However, a major power player, if you have her, is Noise. She is the ultimate cheat code to this fight. Because of her constant taunting abilities, you can use a combination of iframing and abusing her heal skill to keep everyone alive and redirecting all the attacks. I have a Noise guide if you want to take a quick peek at how the heal mechanics work, but I'm gonna let my footage do the talking. For this showcase, I'm gonna put Himeno and Pascal in the same team, just to flex, and then I'm gonna demonstrate that I can survive the entire 3 minutes without any attacks going into them. Here's what that run looked like. When Blacksmith launches bombs, I stick Noise in the shooting position, and using her heal ability, survive the turret shots, then go into cover to reload, as well as iframing the bombs. Then it takes just a couple more charge attacks to heal Noise back to full, and then we repeat the cycle. Let's see it in action. By mastering this mechanic, you can cheese this fight pretty hard, and all that's left is the fight with the timer with your DPS. It did take a while before I was able to get this down, so even if your Noise wipes midway through, that's probably good enough. One last thing to note, when you reach the last 3 or so health bars of the boss, he will do an attack where he stuns one of your units, and you have to shoot some cancel rings to save them. The 2 turrets are actually destructible, but from my experience, they got a lot of health. And by the time I break one, the fight is pretty much over. For my runs, I usually just use a copy of my Modernia setup, but I replace Helm with Noise. If you don't have Noise, then you can use a combination of shielders, healers, or cover repairers. Blacksmith is tankier than Modernia, but once you get the mechanics down, it's not that big of a threat. third runner-up, we have Chatterbox. If you have certain units, he's actually going to be easier than Blacksmith. Let's go over his attacks. The boss will always open with a slam attack that targets your middlemost unit. Assuming you take cover, it will most likely take out that unit's cover health. He will then follow up with a missile barrage, targeting the same unit that he slammed. While the missiles are destructible, they come out pretty fast, and if you don't take out enough, it's possible your unit will bite the dust. After the barrage, he will jump back and will charge up an AoE blast that needs to be cancelled. Then he will recycle this moveset. Some general rules for this fight: do not break the boss's core, because if you do, he does a super slam attack that hits everyone and will probably cost you the run. You can break his missile launcher parts, but if both are broken, he will regenerate them. For DPS recommendations, any unit that can pierce is really good, because they can often double dip on damage by hitting the core and his body at the same time. You can damage the core, just don't destroy it. Something you can try is by putting set DPS units in the left or rightmost slot, as you may find it easier to hit all three parts at once. To protect yourself from the slams, you can of course bring a healer or bring a shielder that can mitigate a large hit. A unit that's particularly good in this fight is Modernia. Because of her AoE hitbox from the burst, she can completely negate the missile barrage. Before Naga and Tia came out, I used the good old Leader and Senti support core, and Helm to heal back Scarlet. But now, I've been using some faster clears with Alice and Red Hood with the Tiga comp. Now we're entering what most players consider the two most annoying special interception bosses to face. It's time to play Osu, because we have Gravedigger next. You're probably quite familiar with this fight, as you literally fought it before unlocking this mode, but this version is more durable and a whole lot meaner. The best recommendation for a team I can give is a shotgun comp, and this is because they have an easier time with the cancel rings, as they shoot out a lot of pellets. I actually quite like this boss, as it can allow more of your roster to shine. Just throw together any combination of shotgun users with your usual support core, and throw in your best invested DPSs. For me, I personally use Leader, Guilty, Summer Anise, Sugar, and Modernia. You don't need a healer for this fight, as it's more of a make or break encounter. You either win or you die. Here's the game plan. Complete the cancel rings obviously, but you don't actually have to get all of the rings. The boss will only attack you if you fail 2 rounds of cancel rings in a row. If it does attack you, go into cover, and as long as you're not in its third phase, you can tank a hit and keep going. But if it attacks during its last phase, then it will one-shot you, even if your team has full cover and health. So keep your hands on the trigger close for the restart button. There's not a whole lot of strategy that I can give. One thing that has worked for me is to know when to give up a round of cancel rings if it's cutting it a bit tight. For example, during this cancel ring round, my Modernia was about to run out of ammo. Even though the burst is ready, I'm gonna give up this round and wait until Modernia is ready again so that I can be sure I can get the next one. Just remember, as long as you don't fail 2 rounds in a row, you're good. You don't need to use the exact comp I use. Throw together any shotgun users, preferably ones that can boost other shotgun users' powers, like Sugar. Guilty is good type 2 to bring. She's purely offensive and there's no reason that you don't have her. You can also use Drake or even Isabel. It's the same gameplay as the previous Gravedigger fights, this one just happens to be a lot tougher. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. The most annoying special interception boss by a pretty big margin is Alteisen, aka Thomas the Tank Engine. This one is a doozy. Now, there are a number of strategies people use, but they tend to be quite specific, so I'll list those as well as some general tips I can give you. Unlike the version you fight early in the story, this one does not mess around. Pretty much all of its attacks will one-shot one of your units, and it is a huge DPS check. It's got a lot of turrets and missile launchers, and the faster you can get rid of those, the better. I imagine the hardest part about this encounter is surviving the first round of turrets. My best general advice I can give is to either use taunt units to sacrifice themselves from your main DPSs, or use someone like Rapunzel that can resurrect a fallen ally. My personal team has Dorothy, as this is a DPS check, and she will do more personal damage than Leader. Then Makima for her taunt ability, and being able to stay alive for a couple seconds even after reaching 0 health. Of course, it's not exactly fair for me to say, just use Makima, so other taunters can also work too. I also use the typical Modernia and Scarlet DPS setup, and Rapunzel as a panic button in case something goes wrong. A weird comp you can try is Ludmilla plus Sakura if you have the two. This setup basically negates all damage from Alteisen for 30 seconds via her burst, and Ludmilla's kit also allows you to just focus on the boss without fear of getting wiped out. But assuming you don't have these two, I got some ways for you to get a higher score. From what I was able to gather, it's actually possible to iframe the turret shots, except I can't find a way to do it consistently. Once in a blue moon, the turrets will just miss you and you end up taking no damage. I don't know how to replicate it, but it is possible. Nonetheless, you'll want to take out the turrets immediately. The missiles, on the other hand, can actually be iframed pretty consistently. Let's go back to our Lord and Savior, Noise. If you go into shooting stance as the train starts to fire missiles, go back into cover right before the first shot hits, count to 4 missiles, then peek back out. The timing is a bit tight and the missiles can be a little misaligned, but it works. Let's see it again. Stick out Noise, wait for the missiles to start, and as soon as it's about to hit, go into cover. As long as you count the missiles and get the timing down, you can at least consistently dodge the missiles. Since you're most likely going to be focusing on the projectiles, you may want to put the bursts on auto so that you don't miss out on damage. When Alteisen has 3 health bars remaining, it will go into its second phase, and if you're able to reach this point, you're in the home stretch. The train will only have 2 attacks left. It will launch a barrage of destroyable rockets, and also prompting a cancel ring. Be sure to pay attention to the ring. If you fail it even once, your run is over. Alternate between your 2 DPS's bursts, and take out the rockets and the cancel ring. And eventually, victory will be yours. Just like Chatterbox, I will use DPSs that can pierce or deal bursts or concentrated damage, as it's the most beneficial to you when you can take out the turrets and missile launchers right away. It's easily the toughest one out of the 5 bosses, and it took me way longer than the other ones to full clear. There's really no set strategy I can give. It's a huge DPS check, so just focus on the bosses that you can get a higher score on, and be patient until you have the gear and damage numbers to take out the train. If you're playing on mobile, it may even be advantageous for you to switch the game into landscape mode, as that will actually increase your field of view and hit more targets sooner than you're supposed to. So that's it. Unlocking Special Interception was actually the first time that the game clicked for me, and I realized there's actually a lot more to the game when it comes to team building. Hopefully in this guide, I was able to give some pointers on how you can get better scores on them, and start getting that sweet manufactured gear. Next time, I will be explaining in detail about the mechanics of overload gear, as you may have seen in my character guides. Special Interception is just one of those barriers that every player has to get through. But trust me when I say this, when you start getting overload gear, Nikke pretty much changes to a whole new game, and you'll be more informed when people start arguing about meta aspects of the game. Anyways, I wish you luck on this game mode, be patient, and soon you'll be seeing that golden border more and more often. Thank you for watching, and always remember, have fun with the game.